how many jobs do you think in this country relate to exports to the EU, depend on exports to the EU at the moment?
I think that there is no good number for that because words like depend are so they're meaningless.
You think it's meaningless to say that a percentage of the company's turnover which comes from exports to Europe means that a proportion of the jobs depend on exports to the EU. Is that what you're saying?
I didn't quite follow what you're saying, but I'll say what I think. I was on the Euro campaign 15 years ago when the famous
Sorry, I'm not interested in the Euro campaign 15 years ago.
Yes.
I'm asking you, do you know how many jobs depend on exporting to the EU in the British economy? It's a very simple question.
And I'm saying to you that the word depend renders the sentence meaningless. We've had this argument has been going since March 1999 when the big study was published about the so-called 3 million jobs depending on the EU. Now,
you do know the numbers. So you do know that 3 million jobs in this country depend on exporting to the EU.
I spoke to the guy who did that report the day the report was published in 1999, and do you know what he said? He said that the use of this campaign, of this report by Britain in Europe is, quote, worse than Goebbels, unquote. That's what he said that morning, and that's why
So you're saying that the suggestion in the document published by the government, which was written by Treasury officials, estimating that the number of jobs relating to exports to the EU, which they put at 3 million, is worse than Goebbels. Is that what you're telling the committee?
I'm saying that the people who wrote the original research have described its use by the likes of Nick Clegg and the pro-EU campaigners as worse than Goebbels. Correct. That's not my words. That's the words of the people who actually wrote the report. Because it conflates the weasel word "depend" with they will be lost if we vote to leave.
Sorry,
which is a non sequitur.
Mr. Cummings, I haven't asked you about how many jobs would be lost were we to leave the EU. That wasn't my question. I was asking you about how many depend. I agree with you. There is a distinction to be made about the current state of the British economy and what would happen were we to leave. Mm-hmm. I'm asking you to concentrate now for a minute, not on what happened 15 years ago, but on the number of jobs in this country which depend on exporting to the EU. And the figure based on the ONS, and you say that you always use the official statistics as well, is 3 million. Do you know what proportion of that are manufacturing jobs?
I think you're misunderstanding these numbers. The government's own figures show that only 5% of British businesses export to the EU. 5%. 95% don't.
And that is because we have a spread of sizes of company, and therefore you have, I agree with you, 5% of companies, but they are very large companies which employ a lot of people, and therefore you have a lot of jobs which depend on exporting to the EU market. Mm-hmm. So to say that only 5% of companies export to the EU and to say that 3 million jobs are dependent on the EU is completely compatible. Do you understand that, Mr. Cummings?
I don't really understand what you're saying now, I'm afraid.
Mr. Cummings, do you understand that not every company in this country is the same size?
I do understand that, yes.
Good. So you think that at the moment only 5% of companies export to the EU?
Not that I think, that's what the government's figures are.
Okay. Do you accept that of those companies, a significant proportion are very large?
Probably, yes.
Good. Fine. Now, of the 3 million jobs which are dependent on the EU exports...
How do you define dependent?
I define dependent as working out the proportion of turnover. But if I might say so,
I don't understand what that means. What do you mean?
Mr. Cummings, in a select committee, the convention is that the members ask the questions and the witness provides the answers. And you seem to have some difficulty with that, if I might say so. And yet, you've told us that the key plank of the Leave campaign is to restore the sovereignty of Parliament. I would have thought that if you were really interested in promoting the sovereignty of Parliament and, as you put it, being committed to campaigning in a way that will create a legacy for the country's democratic processes and traditions, you might pay slightly more attention to answering the questions you're asked rather than punting off on the latest thing that happens to have popped into your head.